Hi, friend. Welcome to Gather and Growth, a show created for passionate, growth-focused rural women like you. From mindset work and building strong habits to exploring the unique joys and challenges of living rural, this is a show to leave you feeling joyful, inspired, and a little less alone. Together, we're on a journey of reaching for the most confident, healthy, and authentic version of ourselves, and I'm forever grateful to have you by my side. Whether you're currently running on a back road, shuffling kids to town, hopping along for a tractor ride, or 3 loads deep into folding laundry, grab yourself a nice coffee and let's dive in. Have you heard? We are so dang excited about the launch of this podcast that we're giving away 2 $50 Amazon gift cards. Entering is easy peasy lemon squeezy. Just screenshot this episode, share on social, and tag me. If you could also include a line or two about your favorite takeaways, I would love to hear what resonated with you the most. Winners will be announced in Gather and Growth episode 4, so be sure to tune in. Welcome. I am giddy, excited to share this episode with you today. But before we jump in, there's something you need to know. I recorded this episode last month, the moment after I plugged in my podcast equipment. It was way too late at night. I was coming off being sick, and I'm in my dining room, which turns out actually has really terrible acoustics. Part of me so desperately wanted to re-record it and bring you the most perfectly polished episode 1. But when I sit back and listen to the original recording, I am just flooded with emotion, and I cannot bear to replace it. 300 episodes from now, I want to look back and smile on where it all began. So, if this is your first time getting to know me, I have to add the disclaimer, I do not sound like my usual bubbly self in this episode, but I promise it's as real as it gets. After all, imperfect action is what gets us from where we are to where we're going, and I hope the next few moments empower you to do it scared. Hi, friends. Welcome to Gather and Growth. It is currently midnight. I do not make a habit out of staying up at all hours of the night and working, but I just set up my podcast equipment and I have to give this a go. So this will either be the first episode that you hear, or this is me just practicing for my producer, Jill, to listen to. I am so excited and a little nervous to be doing this show. It has been something that I've been talking about, almost 2 years now. And what's so interesting is I have let every excuse, mindset block, level of procrastination stop me from getting to where I am today. But we are here and we are doing the thing and we're doing it scared. And I am so excited about what's in store. I know that personally, listening to podcasts completely changed my life. I have to think back to August, September of 2019. I didn't even know what a podcast was. Felt like I kept hearing people talk about it. I saw people on Instagram talking about their podcasts, and I didn't even know that I already had the app on my phone. And I'll never forget listening to my first podcast. I just happened to click over to something from Instagram. I was getting ready in the bathroom on the way to work, and I just had that feeling like this is important, and I don't know why. And it was truly the catalyst that helped me get from where I was to where I am now, from where I was to where I want to be. And so to be able to use this medium to bring in incredible voices and perhaps give you some insight and make you feel a little bit less alone in this journey called life. Gosh, what a blessing. So if this is our first time meeting, my name is Emily. I live on a farm in West Central Illinois. We grow corn and soybeans. We have 2 kids. Right now, they're ages 5 and 3. And this farm has been in my husband's family for a really long time. I always get the generation count wrong, so I'm not even going to try to say it for fear that someone in the family will listen to it and then have a reason to come back and tell me I was wrong. I did not grow up in the area that I live. We live in a very, very rural community. I grew up in what I thought was a small town in Southern Illinois, just outside of St. Louis, which is hilarious compared to where I live now. We had like 10,000 people at the time when I was living there, and it's grown since. Now there are, I'm using air quotes, you can't see, 50 people in the town that I live in. But it's always what I wanted. I wanted to raise my family surrounded by trees, surrounded by fields. I absolutely love it. I went to college for elementary education. I'm a teacher by trade, and I met my husband immediately after. Farms don't move, so people do. I met a farmer and I moved myself here. Before moving back to the farm, I was a fourth grade teacher, and I continued that when we moved up here. And then the summer after I had my son, on a total whim and a leap of faith, I left the classroom. I remember standing in my parents' kitchen, just randomly scrolling social media, and I saw an ad for our local YMCA. It was a program director position, having all to do with summer camp and after school and special events. I was not looking to leave the classroom. I thought I was going to be in that school for the rest of my life. I applied, I interviewed, I got the job, and it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. I was so passionate about the work that I was doing. I was serving our local community. I was working with kids in a completely different capacity than I was in the classroom. Because we were a rural branch, I had, so many opportunities being on a small team to learn the ins and outs of budgeting and HR. And at one point, I think I was the marketing department, like just all the things. And I loved it. I loved it so much. A couple years later, I had my daughter, and then immediately after maternity leave, went into summer camp season, which turned into pumping like 8 times a day. And by the end of that summer, I was completely and utterly depleted, majorly struggling with burnout. And just across the board, I had poured myself so heavily into this career that I loved, to this young family that I was raising, to trying to be the best farm wife ever, doing all of the things for all of the people, which looking back was kind of how I had always lived my life. I am an Enneagram 3. I'm an achiever. I have Gold Star syndrome. I love to do all of the things. And I hit a moment where I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I am not the mom that I want to be. I'm not showing up for my life in the way that I want to be. Like, there has to be another way. I cannot do this anymore. And that's right when I found podcasts. And right when I decided that I was ready to start a health journey, unlike one I ever had before. I don't know about you, but most of the messages I received about nutrition or exercise or movement, throughout my teens and 20s, all had to do with looking a certain way or trying to maintain a certain aesthetic or shaming myself into doing things differently. And I just wasn't about that life. I did not want to be a part of that. I wanted to truly take care of myself for my health, as a way to have energy to show up for my family and for myself. And I knew that had to start with intentionally putting myself first for the first time. And in that time period is when I learned the power of habits. Those are the things that we do every single day without thinking about it. But there is some intentionality behind building them or breaking them. I learned how to give myself grace. I learned how to seek progress over perfection. And for the first time, I stuck with it. And rather than focusing on a certain diet or anything like that, I just fueled my body well with the things that made me feel good. Instead of following some crazy workout plan that I found on Pinterest, I just started doing things that made me feel healthy and strong and that I enjoyed. I went from barely being able to run a mile to doing something I never dreamed possible and running a half marathon. And it was truly life-changing. And the thing that made this health journey so different than any other is that I was exposed to personal growth in the process. So I was working on my mindset. I was implementing gratitude. I was reading books like crazy. I was listening to podcasts. I was literally filling every area of my life with the voices that emulated the person I was trying to become. I was completely shifting the entire way that I looked at the world, and it changed everything. I ended up losing like 60 pounds in the process, which truly, I didn't even care about the number. I just wanted to feel better. I wanted my clothes to fit. I wanted to have energy and not feel so exhausted and snappy at my kids all the time. And after walking through that, and then of course, leading into the height of the pandemic, I just started to have this feeling like I've started following these Instagram accounts with these incredible farm wives and women in agriculture who are all sharing their stories. And I loved the connection that gave me, the pride that made me feel in our lifestyle and the things that I was struggling with, and just to know that I wasn't alone. And so my wheels started turning. And I was like, surely I cannot be the only person who lives in the middle of nowhere who also wants to talk about running half marathons or what kind of parenting style they have or personal growth books or whatever it may be. And so that's when once again, on a leap of faith and feeling like a total imposter, I started an account on Instagram called Raising Russell. Raising being, I'm out here raising my family, raising animals, raising crops, raising myself, raising other rural women. And so that was kind of the umbrella that held it all. And gosh, talk about doing it scared. It's like putting yourself out there, like being a quote unquote wannabe influencer. Like I felt like so uncomfortable, but I did it. And I met a lot of incredible people along the way. I pushed myself out of my comfort zone and learned from some really smart people and kind of stumbled my way through building something that I was really, really proud of. Later that year, I decided to bring what I thought was just going to be a few friends and family along for a end of year habit challenge, which turned into several hundred people by the end of the year, which turned into my habit challenge that I created called You Do You 82. And around that time, I kept feeling like I know that I'm really burnt out in my job. I love it so much, but I can't do this anymore. Like I don't know what this means. I don't know what else is out there. I started looking at other options, but anything in person would have meant a 45-minute in the opposite direction drive, which doesn't make sense for my family. And all of the work from home opportunities were fine, but just didn't quite light me up. So much thanks to my super supportive husband, I took another leap of faith into the unknown in, building out Raising Russell and seeing where that leads. Since August, that has, gone from content creation to life coaching to building masterminds for rural women to speaking on stages and so many more things that I never dreamed possible. And now it's brought me here. And if there's one thing that I know, it's that growth exists on the other side of our comfort zone. Whether, for me, it was leaving the classroom for the why, or leaving the why for this, stepping onto stage for the first time, heading off to a retreat in Colorado where I didn't know a single person and felt like I shouldn't be there and ended up being the catalyst that brought me to where I am today, or starting an Instagram account, picking up the microphone. This is a long, long, long awaited project that I'm so excited for. And I know deep in my heart is what I'm meant to do. My brain is just spinning, thinking about all of the people I want to talk to on this show. I want the show to be a mixture of me doing what I love through teaching, through storytelling, taking really complex ideas and breaking them down is something that, that's what I did for years as a fourth grade teacher. I love that. I love to laugh alongside you. I love to keep it real. If you follow me on Instagram, I share the ups and downs of everything. And I just feel like there are so many people in the world that if we sit down together, share a cup of coffee, or even virtually over Zoom these days, it builds an empathy bridge that helps expand our worldview, maybe shifts our mindset, and helps us see what life is like for someone else. And I'm really excited to do this in this space. I know that living in a small town and being interested in growth, whether personally, whether professionally, pursuing big dreams, having really big goals isn't always easy. Sometimes the people in your very own backyard aren't even necessarily the most supportive of what you're doing. And the more and more rural women I talk to, the more that story rings true. So it's my hope that in this space, we can gather in growth and together we can reach for that very best version of ourselves while, just loving ourselves along the way. I'm really thankful to be on this journey with you, and I can't wait to see what's in store. Bringing this podcast to life has literally been a dream come true, but it's not the only thing I've been working on this summer. My website is finally live. There you can find information about masterminds, You Do You 82, my upcoming retreat, how to book me as a speaker, and of course, the show notes for today's episode. Check it out at emilyruschel.com, EmilYREUSCHEL.com. Have I told you today how much I appreciate you? I'd like to imagine this was a meaningful backyard patio kind of chat between friends sipping LaCroix at sunset. If you enjoyed today's show,
please take a screenshot to share or forward this episode to a friend. You can also find me at Emily Rushell over on social to continue the conversation. It's truly a joy to hear what tidbits and takeaways made an impact on your day. As always, all links and resources mentioned in today's episode can be found in the show notes listed below or over at emilyrushell.com. Special thanks to my podcast manager, Jill Carr, for the time and love she puts into producing Gather and Growth for this community. What a blessing it is to be on this personal growth journey together. Forever grateful for you.